Welcome, everybody. We are back with episode 4 of Oh Captain, My Captain. Myself, Joshua Hudson, as host. We're going to be previewing the Week 9 Thursday night showdown slate for DFS on Draftkings. And I brought along our captain once again, Mr. Oklahomie Doug. How we doing today, Doug?
Another day, another dollar.
Oh, that's the whole idea of DFS. Let's win that money, baby. So, this week's matchup, not the most appealing. It's the Jets. It's the Colts. Jets coming off a big upset of Cincinnati. The Colts with a couple late turnovers kind of sunk them against Tennessee. Both here off a short week. So many endless possibilities, but we're going to start kind of previewing a couple of the lineups that you've put together for this segment. And really, it's going to be very running back heavy. So the last couple of weeks, what you've really tried to do is kind of zig when others zag. And this week, you're kind of steering into the skid. And really, I think it makes sense, kind of going with the chalky plays, as many DFS pundits like to call it. So we'll start with your optimal lineup, plugging in the one and only Jonathan Taylor. What's kind of your science behind arguably one of the best running backs in the NFL currently?
Well, outside of what you just said about being one of the best running backs, just the same way we've been starting off every show. I forgot to do it when you introduced me, but I found it here, and here it is. Name one person that could beat Captain America, Captain Vietnam. All right, J.J. Taylor. Although although the, although the Jets seem to be on an upward trajectory, the D's still no good. They get off the ball well, good edges. Solid gets a lot out of them. Sheldon Rankins kind of the second coming. Them Tyrannosaurus Rex arms there in the middle. But the Jets, the D's still underwhelming. And let's see right here. Give up 121 yards rushing, 7th worst in the league. 5.51 league points per play, meaning that they give up plays in chunks. Just like last week when Joe Mixon kind of had the low rushing day with 40 yards. But whenever he did touch the ball, those 40 yards were in chunks and catching the ball. So they give up big chunks. Taylor's already a guy that can, get that yak. And I think playing the Jets here, he gets to the second level. I think he might even go through that third level. Ain't nobody after that. Love Taylor this week. And like you said, I ain't zigging, zagging no more. We're on that DUI checkpoint, boy.
We're staring into the skid. And for the record, the Jets allow the most fantasy points to running backs per game via DraftKings. They are almost a full 7 points per game ahead of the Philadelphia Eagles in DraftKings scoring. So I think you're definitely going to see a lot of lineups that are going to feature Jonathan Taylor this week. Kind of sticking with this lineup here, we've plugged in the two quarterbacks, Carson Wentz at 10,800, Mike White at 9,800, coming off a huge game for a Jets quarterback, topping over 400 yards. You've added in a couple of the under the radar or non-existent pass catchers in Jeff Smith from the Jets, as well as Denzel Mims. But one guy I do want to talk about, and it's going to kind of segue into the honorable mention lineup. Michael Carter last week was the RB1 in fantasy. It makes a ton of sense here to kind of pair him with Taylor, as the Colts aren't really the greatest run defense either. Although in DraftKings scoring, they allow the third fewest fantasy points per game to running backs. So walk me through the Michael Carter selection here, not just as part of this flex lineup with Taylor at captain, but running him out as a captain as well.
Well, You're right about the Colts. They do give up the least amount of, or bottom or top five in fantasy points, but 114 yards per game at home. The Colts. That's the eighth worst in the league. Last three games, the Colts have gave up 5.58 points per play. They be getting up in chunks as well. We see Michael Carter. We see him hit that second level, boy, and he can leave a linebacker on his heels. So I really like Carter this week. Just in the last two games, 26 rushing attempts, 120 yards, 23 targets. In the last two games, 23 targets. Caught 17 of them, 160 yards, two TDs. Woo! I like Marcus Carter. He's going to be in a lot of captain spots because he's priced cheaper than Taylor. He's going to be in there in a lot of captain spots. I couldn't find a way to not get him in the same lineup as Taylor here.
So one thing I do want to point out, and a lot of it is because of how well he's been in fantasy this year. I believe he is the wide receiver 11 in PPR scoring. But throughout both these lineups, and I'll go through and I'll read off the second one here shortly, but you've left off Colts wide receiver Michael Pittman. Now, I know you've plugged in Wentz into not one, but both of these lineups. What's kind of going behind the science that leaving off Pittman and I will point this out, that the Jets do allow the fifth fewest wide receiver points per game in DraftKings scoring, and I feel like a lot of that is because they give up so much to running backs as a result.
A lot of it has to do with Carson Wentz and Taylor. I don't think they're going to have to do a whole lot of pushing the field with Pittman. Pittman having to make a play. I think it's going to come to him, as you said, with that Jets run defense. I think it's going to come to him for Taylor. Will Pittman get his chances? Yes. But with the price he was, it just wasn't possible to get the wide receiver one in there. The way it was with, like the pairing Mike White with Keelan Cole. Pairing Mike White with even Jamison Crowder was, I believe, almost $3,000 cheaper than Michael Pittman.
7,800, yeah.
So, you're talking about a $3,000 gap there. If you're going to in my opinion, if you're going to roster Pittman Thursday, he needs to be in the captain seat. If you're going to pay up for him, I think he needs to be carrying your team in the captain seat, in my opinion.
Pittman for a flex costs $10,200. As a captain, he's going to run you $15,300. He is, if I'm not mistaken, the third highest priced player in this slate behind Carson Wentz and Jonathan Taylor. That being said, your honorable mention lineup here, we mentioned Carter being the captain. You've been able to plug in both these quarterbacks here, Carson Wentz at 10,800, Mike White at 9,800. The one thing that I really like, considering both of the Jets running backs actually were top 10 running backs last week, you've been able to plug Ty Johnson in as a flex as well at 6,400. Talk to me a little bit about your methodology here on that front.
When it comes to making these lineups, sometimes it's just all about the way I watched last week's game. I see a player touch the ball and he just ignites the team. He gets a push, like it's all of a sudden they put him in and the offensive line's getting a better push and wide receivers are blocking better and he's just bulldozing people. Let me tell you, I love Ty Johnson, and I think he's a Robert Saleh guy. I think Saleh's going to find a way to get him on the field and get him his chances. Let's see, over the last two games, 13 targets over the last two games, caught all of them but two, 136 yards, also 9 rushing attempts. That sounds pretty dang good for me at the same price as Zach Pascal.
Yeah, Pascal sitting at 6,600, Ty Johnson 6,400. Jets wide receiver Elijah Moore, 6,200, who finally got on the board last week. You're kind of sitting in this, really it's this mid-range realm of mediocre production, really. And one of the things that, we do to kind of break down with these videos quite often is it's very easy to want to pay up to get the studs, but then it's all right, where are these late or the low dollar dart throws? And when you look at this slate, there really aren't many. Like you could look at a guy like Ryan Griffin, the backup tight end for the Jets, who's sitting at, I believe, 1,400. Jeff Smith, who you had in your optimal lineup, who has.
And that's because, like you're saying, I had to get somebody in there. And what did he have, Josh? Like we was talking before the show, three targets in the last 5 games or something like that.
It's been slow going.
Still $1,400. And then you get down below that, Marlon Mack for 800. Oh, he's had a grand total of 4 rushing attempts the whole season. So
feels that way, right?
When you get into these showdowns in a single game and you only got 2 depth charts to pick from, buddy, it might look top heavy, but filling out that last player or those last 2 players is very, very tricky.
The biggest thing that I would suggest if you're planning to pay down for players, your 2 best dart throws at under $1,000 are going to be Marlon Mack, who you did mention at 800. My biggest reason behind this, Jonathan Taylor, obviously we know how great he is. Coming off of a short week, though, they may not want to continue to run him out there 20 plus, 25 plus times, giving him the football, even though we know how electric he can be. Marlon Mack did not have a single touch last week. So we could see him get a little bit more worked in with Nyheim Hines, kind of take some of that pressure off of Taylor, because we know that there's 10 days now to rest for the next game, right? So that kind of lends me to think that maybe Mack is going to see more than, 0 touches this week or even 5 touches. There's a reason that the Colts did not trade Marlon Mack at the trade deadline this week. They want to be able to work him in and kind of give Taylor some rest. And again, we've talked about how bad the Jets defense is. It makes a lot of sense. But a dart throw at pass catcher for the Colts. How about Ashton Doolin? He hasn't done a whole lot production-wise, but over the last 2 weeks, he does have 8 targets. He's just not – it doesn't have that – there's something off with the connection between him and Wentz, but Wentz is looking for him, and especially looking for him deep. So all it takes is that one deep shot, and maybe you get 4 points for $200. That's worth it if you're able to plug in Taylor and Carter and Pittman and maybe Wentz or even Mike White, some of these high dollar guys where then you really need to consider paying down at that price. You mentioned Zach Pascal running a lot more out of the slot, especially with the injuries to Paris Campbell. And we know that T.Y. Hilton has been banged up. I believe he's out for this week with a concussion. There's just a lot of pieces going on here. And Corey Davis being up in the air as well. He was doubtful last week heading in, ultimately ruled out. Short week. Most don't expect Corey Davis to play in this game either, which is going to open up more opportunities for guys like Jamison Crowder and even Elijah Moore. So, Doug, with that, I'm going to kick it over to you. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up this video?
No, one little thing. The Jets allow the second yards per pass attempt in the league at 4.5 yards per pass attempt. That means could see a lot of Zach Pascal coming out of the slot. And we also seen Tyler Croft catch one of his 2 passes for a touchdown. Still $4,000. So a little pricey for a guy that only got 2 targets. But he's the tight end. He caught a touchdown. Have at him. And one cool little nugget. The New York Jets threw 49 times, average 49 throws the last 2 games. 12 more than the previous games averaged out. So it looks like Mike White is not only making the Jets better, but picking those plays up. So.
Another really cheap option, Michael Badgley, $4,400. Jets allow the second most fantasy points to kickers per game in DraftKings scoring. Another cheap dart throw to help you guys pay up. So with that, that's Oklahomie Doug, myself, Joshua Hudson. Feel free to subscribe on the YouTube page, youtube.com/Club Fantasy FFL. We'll drop 1 to 2 of these Oh Captain, My Captain videos every week. Wednesday nights, no pun intended, our flagship show, DFS and Chill on Thursday nights, Club Dynasty this week as well, every other week going forward. And of course, we will answer all of your start-sit questions on Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern on Start Sit, different day. Good luck on Thursday night. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.